Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Living Lives. Today, I have with me a good friend of mine, Tom Workman, and he is an intuitive channel and author. He's a PhD in communication studies, currently completing a doctorate in metaphysical science, and he lives in Phoenix with his husband, AJ. So I'm going to welcome Tom to the stream, and let's see what we're all about today. Hey, Tom.
Hey, good to join you today.
It's so good to have you here. And I know you just published a chapter in a collective book called Ordinary Oneness, and I know your chapter was on the practice of collective desire. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is? Because I'm kind of curious.
So, just so everyone, to give you some background, both my husband and I channel together, and we channel a group of entities that we call the guides. The guides are a variety of entities who speak most often as one. And they talk to us an awful lot about living lives of joy and what's involved in living a life of joy. And part of that is an understanding of the difference between the individual and the collective. And we certainly have an awful lot more that we'll be speaking and writing towards that. They're teaching us a little bit more about it every day. But what they mean primarily is that we often, as human beings, spend most of our time thinking in terms of our individual desire, right? And in fact, we have built entire philosophies around, being good to yourself, going for being number one, and all of that sort of taking care of number one, all of that sort of thing, where the focus becomes on my ability to feel worthy enough to be able to have my own personal desire and to have anything I want and manifest whatever I want. And all of that's true. None of that is incorrect. However, what the guides have been teaching us is that individual desire is oftentimes based on the desire for a circumstance that we think will produce joy for us. And they keep reminding us that circumstances are never the source of joy. But that is, to me, nearly impossible to really get into my head. And I spend quite a bit of time because we are trained to work by circumstances, right? Even it's a sunny day, it's a rainy day. The weather's good, the weather's bad, my finances are secure, my finances are not secure, go on and on and on and on. That these sort of circumstances, what's going on in my life, what surrounds me, is either a condition that allows for joy or a condition that doesn't. And so many times our desires are if onlys, right? If only I had this, then I would certainly be happy.
Well, I'm sure you have some ideas as to how we can look more as, as a group into what we're doing. So,
yeah, and the first thing is sort of recognizing that conditions are never individual. Conditions are always collective. I start the chapter by talking half tongue in cheek, but really it was the perfect lesson for me. With my garden. I have a 1 acre property in Phoenix, Arizona, and you've had the pleasure.
Which is beautiful, by the way.
And it is literally an entire acre of desert botanical garden. The previous owners created pathways and planted really every type of desert plant that exists, but we've been in a drought almost for a full year, a little over a year actually, and even the cactus are losing it, right? I mean, the trees and bushes that are designed to be hardy throughout all of this have not been making it well. What they taught me, and so I thought immediately, here's my condition. It makes me very sad if my garden falls apart. And these are conditions that are unhappy to me. And my desire then is to save the garden. Without asking the garden what it wanted. Without ever stopping and saying, what does the garden think? And we do the same thing as humans, right? we say, I want this, and don't stop and say, what is the effect of that on the collective? What would be best for the entire collective? I'll give you another example that was happening at the same time as writing the chapter. And again, for me, writing a chapter is about listening to the guides, letting the guides to speak, and just sharing whatever the guides are speaking about at the time. It's amazing how different collection book themes sort of pop up for me. I get invited just at the exact same time the guides are teaching me something, right?
Isn't that amazing? If we're open to those
Always.
connections, yeah.
That's right. I think they've learned that I learn better if I'm writing in the middle of it. I'm writing it all down. Anyway, a similar event happened to me. We have a lot of four-way stop signs here. You know, we're out pretty rural part of northern Phoenix, outside of the city. And so there were, as usual, you know, you take turns. If there are 4 cars at one at every stop sign, and everyone takes turns. And there's several folks out here who never take turns, right? So I've almost come to recognize the car and this individual, someone here goes, and then the very next person goes right through and ignores that it was my turn. And again, you know, the question is sort of, my response is always to the individual, right? You know, I wish you were less rude. And the bigger question is, what would the world look like if we were less focused on what we needed and more focused on what everyone on that corner needed? For that 30 seconds, we're a community of cars. Just for 30 seconds. And the question becomes, what's our collective good?
Okay.
What's best for us all? And what's my contribution to doing that?
So it's really being attuned to all the little communities that we have throughout the day, and not just in general, but looking at this little community I'm with now, what's the best good, and this little community I'm with now, what's the best good.
Yeah, and that we balance. Philosophers have been talking about for, you know, thousands of years. That's nothing new for us, and yet, as humanity, we keep learning that lesson. I believe that where we're headed as a species, our evolution is moving towards the reliance again on collective. The importance of we have really sort of cycled out of collectivity, are interdependent, and have become much more independent. And you can understand why. We have, with technologies and abilities, we've become self-sufficient for the most part, right? And we've sort of figured out how to get what we need and get what we want. But the truth is, all of human nature is interdependent. It is always reliant on the larger community to accomplish what's necessary. And so I really see Source and the evolutionary impulse is working towards moving us back to collective, even around the pandemic. This is a classic example. No individual can conquer what the collective can do.
Okay. I think your connection's a little fuzzy there.
I'm sorry.
You froze for your sound came through, but your picture froze for a minute there. But that's fine. We heard what you said, so that's the important part.
That's what happened.
So, so you know, you talked about the species cycling. You know, going through cycles. You know, humans as a species going through cycles with, you know, moving towards individual and now back towards the collective. I'm looking forward to that, because I know I have those same people who don't like to wait for stop signs here, and it would be nice to, you know, on a microcosm level, but it's going to be nicer on a macro level when everybody really starts looking out for the other people. And
so I'm going to go full circle, because thinking about that means that rather than trying to control my circumstances, which is what we do when we push ahead to get our own, right? So again, that person who zooms past you and goes around you even illegally to get ahead of you on the road, winds up at the same stop sign, or the
I know, it's kind of funny actually.
right next to them. And it's to me a classic opportunity of consciousness. This is all about consciousness, right? This is all about stopping and becoming aware and asking myself, what is it that I want? Right? What do I want? And really thinking about what the person who pulls out in front of traffic wants. And what is it they think they cannot get without pulling their own, right? So recognizing that there's fear involved for many times for us. When we move from collective to individual, it's based upon some fear that we've established that is really, and all fear is misalignment, a lack of alignment, right? Because once we're aligned, we recognize there's always plenty. There's more than enough for everyone. But in any case, that fear then moves us towards. So the more conscious we become, that says, what is it that I want? Or more importantly, what is it that I think I have to do to get it?
Yeah.
Right? Versus what might the collective supply for me? I just was working with we did a fix up on the house in one small area, and so we had a vendor in, and the vendor didn't do it quite as we asked, and so I'm sitting with a friend having coffee last week, and the vendor called. I had called and said this needs to be corrected, and they said sure, and then didn't do anything. So I called back. I said this still hasn't been corrected, and while I'm on the phone, while I'm at coffee, they call back, and I put it on speaker for my friend to listen because I wasn't quite sure what was going to hear. And they just stopped in and said, "Thank you for being so kind. We are so sorry that we messed this up, but you've been so kind about it, and we really want to take care of this for you. We want to fix this for you. We want to make it right." And so we just really are grateful for, because you could tell this woman had been yelled at all day.
Yeah.
Right? She had disgruntled customers who thought that, again, their fear told them, to get what I want, I need to yell and put you down and make you feel bad and threaten you and do all those sorts of things. And instead, I just need to appeal to the collective. Of course, you'll take care of it. Of course, it'll be taken care of. The universe always takes care of us.
Right. I had a similar incident once when I was heading to Greece to get on a cruise, and the flight out of New York was delayed because of a hurricane, and I got to London and I watched my plane take off from the gate. And everybody was in the same boat, and everybody else was hollering at the poor lady behind the counter. It wasn't her fault, and I just went up and said, "Look, here's the situation. I have a cruise to catch. What can you do to help me?" And by gosh, she worked her butt off to help me, because it was just, I wasn't hollering at her, and she checked all the airlines, and she said, "We have the next flight to where you're going, and we'll make sure you're on it." And it was
now, just to be clear to your viewers, I want to, or they're telling me to, separate what is being a nice guy, being polite, from thinking in the collective. So thinking in the collective means seeing beyond my circumstance and seeing the individual. So you saw a harassed airline employee, right? Employee, and I saw a harassed vendor, right? And that's really what we're talking about and what we're looking for,
right.
Right. So what is the bigger picture? That's why this is about consciousness. What if it's not just about me? What if there are other things going on around me than my missed plane, or my unsatisfied contract, or my or my wanting to get someplace but there's traffic,
right?
Or right? I mean, we can really start to build this out and understand that collective desire is actually about a consciousness of the whole, rather than a consciousness just of what I want and what I need. And again, here's the struggle. because we've been enculturated in the last 20 years to be very focused on this is all about what you want, become clear about what you want, go for what you want, go get it, don't let anyone hold you back. And it then becomes a very different conversation. And again, the guides are very clear. Yeah, get everything you want. In fact, you can have everything you want. That's not even a question. It's not even
Right.
The only question is, are you able to see beyond that? Can you see that there's actually an interdependency going on, that if you recognized it and if you worked within it, you would find everything you wanted.
Yeah.
And then some, right? You'd find everything you wanted. Unfortunately, and this was an early, the book that we're writing is called Pathway to Joy. That's what the guides are talking to us about. But they've become very clear that this is less about our individual pathway, what you, Wayne, have to do to have joy in your life, as much as recognizing, Wayne, you're part of a universe that is completely connected and is interdependent, and sees you as an incredibly important facet of the diamond. Right? Without you, the diamond would not look the same. Right. It's unique, it's individual, but it is part of a larger diamond, and it's all those facets that make the diamond so beautiful.
That's a good visual way of looking at it. Puts it all into perspective.
Yeah, been helpful for us. Been very helpful for us.
Yeah.
So not easy to do, but it really means a shift in consciousness. I think the way that I've been trying to practice it, and why I started with my garden, was starting to think about my garden as a whole, and starting to think about my community as a whole, and just switching my focus, because I can be just driven to get what I want and what I need and to get through my day, and just put blinders on for the rest. And so the practice of collective desire for me is just stopping and trying to look at the bigger picture. What else is going on? What's going on around me? And how do I fit in that? How does my desire fit in that? How does my working to get my desire fit into that? And that's a daily practice, right? That means we start at the beginning of the day and we say, I'm going to look further. I'm going to widen my picture.
Yeah. So if you want to read Tom's chapter in the book, here is the book. Ordinary Oneness, the Simplicity of Everyday Love, Grace, and Hope. And Tom's chapter is the last chapter in the book. And it's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So I encourage you to go out and get the book and read more about some of this stuff. So Tom, thank you so much for being on the show today. If you just hang out for a second in the green room, I'm gonna wrap up the show and I'll be right over to chat with you.
Thank you.
Thanks. So thanks for joining me, everybody. I hope you got some things to think about out of this discussion we had with Tom. It's definitely Tom's always an interesting person to chat with. I've known him for a number of years now, and always come away whenever I chat with him with lots of stuff to think about. So I encourage you. Oh, next week, if all the planets align, I will be talking with John Stasio, who is the founder of Easton Mountain Retreat Center, and we'll be talking about their upcoming 21st anniversary. They had a big event planned last year, and that obviously got canceled. So there's a big 21st anniversary celebration this year. So I encourage you all now to go out, make a connection, and live your best lives. Thanks for joining me.